Hi, and welcome to another episode of Walleye Chronicles, where I track you guys down, bring you in, have a conversation with you, and try to find out what makes you tick and what made you choose fishing as a daily, weekly, monthly hobby. Today, I have a very special guest, a gentleman that I've watched since I was just a little tyke. Other than my dad, this guy sits pretty high in my world. If there was, I don't know, a monument of walleye fishermen, this guy would be in contention for it. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Keith Kavajecz. How you doing today, Keith?
Very good, Matt. How are you?
Not too bad. So, a couple questions right off the bat. Thank you first for being on, and thanks for coming on. We had a little bit of technical difficulties and getting going, so thanks for hanging with us on that end.
No problem.
So, I want to go back to right off the start when you first started fishing. What's your first memory of fishing? Do you have a first memory of fishing?
Well, they claim I started fishing about 4 or 5 years old, like most kids, just with a bobber or whatever. I mean, my first real memory of fishing was kind of a weird story. It was, I came home from, I believe I was in kindergarten, maybe first grade, came home, it was raining out. In the backyard, we have this big silverleaf maple tree, and it had a big puddle kind of underneath it, just an indentation. I got home, opened up the refrigerator. In the refrigerator, I was looking for a snack. In the refrigerator is this pan with a fish in it with its head still on it that my mom had bought from the store, but gonna cook or whatever. And I see it in there, and I'm like, "Mom, where'd you get the fish?" And she says, jokingly, "In the puddle, right out in the backyard."
Yep.
Like, well, I want to go catch a fish in the puddle. So she waited till Dad got home. They put me in my rain suit, my little galoshes. I trudged down to the puddle. I'm like, "I need a rod and a reel to catch." "No, you don't need no. Just stand there and look. And when they swim by, just grab them, right?" So I trudged down there laughing their butts off at me, this little kid. I trudged down there and I'm looking at the puddle, and all of a sudden I reach down and I grab, and here I pull up like a sunfish out of this puddle. And I walk back up, and of course their jaws are hitting the ground right now, and they're like, where did you catch it?" I said, "It came swimming by like you said, and I grabbed it." And so it turns out we think maybe one of the neighbors might have thrown a fish in the puddle just as a joke, But here, so very early on, the joke or the saying kind of was I could even catch a fish in the puddle. So there you have it, my first recollection, I guess.
Well, that is a great first fish story. A lot of people don't really have, they have kind of memories going out fishing, but that is pretty awesome. I was thinking that it would be your mom waited for your dad to put something in there for you and see if you can catch it.
No. In fact, my mom wrote up a story to Wheaties had some fishing contest. She wrote up the whole story, sent it in, and I won a mirror lure, one of them jointed pikey kind of things. So I don't know if I have that lure anymore, but I still got the memory.
Right. That is a great memory. So early on, you fished a lot growing up. So what was that kind of, where'd you grow up, and what kind of household did you grow up in? Were you middle income? Kind of how was everything set for you as a child?
I would call us middle income, but we had, I had 5 brothers and sisters, so it was a little tight around our household at times. Thankfully, my dad fished, maybe not as much as I wish he did, but my grandpa liked to fish a lot too. And since he was retired, he would take us fishing. The grandkids, the interesting thing was my grandpa was kind of grumpy. And so anything that happened wrong in the boat was obviously whoever was with him's fault.
Yep.
All the other grandkids got tired of getting yelled at. I just figured that was part of fishing. So I just toughed it out and still got to go fish with grandpa. So I had a family, my grandpa especially liked to fish a lot. We'd fish northerns a lot up north, up by Iron River, Wisconsin, and things like that. We'd fish, we'd take a trip to the Wolf River every year to go white bass fishing, like in March or April, whenever the run was. So he'd take me out of school to do that. So I just always, if I had an opportunity to go fishing, that's where I was. I'd do anything I had to go fishing.
So did you guys eat fish a lot, as being that there was 5 of you? You guys was fish in the diet quite a bit?
I would say some. We didn't catch that many fish. My grandpa was an okay fisherman, but he was more like the fisherman who'd throw out the anchor. We'd sit in one spot, and if they bit, they bit. If they didn't bite, it just meant he didn't have to clean fish, so he was happy with that too. So it didn't really matter. It was more him just wanting to be out on the water, I think. But if we did catch fish, we'd eat them. Smelt, and we used to even go and snag salmon over by 2 rivers and stuff, and those black kind of nasty salmon coming up the stream. came home, cut out the bad parts, and we'd eat salmon. So
All right.
I would say we ate fish, not not a tremendous amount, but enough. What was interesting is, as a young person, I never fished walleyes. My family did not fish walleyes. We were bass, bluegill, crappie, anything pretty much but walleye. If we caught a walleye, it was surely by accident.
Was it like a revered fish though? If you caught one where you're like, oh my god, it's a walleye, was it like the top of the pedestal, or just was just another fish?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, it was more like my family was really anything that fishes, anything that swims, pretty much.
Can you hear me? You cut out a little bit there. Keith, you there? Andy, we are froze.
Are we back?
Oh yeah, there you are.
I don't know. All of a sudden, it just went goofy. So
Yeah, you're talking about the fish that you guys were eating.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, we didn't really target any specific species. What we caught is what we caught, and if they were edible, we ate them. So I would say we ate fish some, but much more of the boiled hot dogs and macaroni and cheese and meatloaf kind of family than a fish eating family.
I gotcha. So what were you on from shore or from a boat?
I fished as a kid. I would fish a little bit from shore, but mainly it was on a boat. My dad had a rowboat. My grandpa had a boat with a little 5-horse Esca engine on it, with air cooled, so we could basically go about 100 yards before it overheated, and that's where you threw the anchor out, and that's where you fished. So, but a lot from the boat. I mean, I did fish from shore when nobody would take me fishing. I'd get out the rod and wander down the shores and stuff, but as quick as I could, I convinced my dad that rowboat was just sitting there and didn't have an engine on it. So I learned how to row, and I did a lot of casting from it, just drifting across the lake. No boat control at all, just randomly throwing, but I was fishing.
Right. So when the first boat with your grandpa, was you all guys got your seat here, no moving, just kind of jam everybody in there, or did you get your own time with grandpa?
Usually I was alone with grandpa because, like I said, the other grandkids didn't particularly enjoy it. But my dad, when he'd take us, he'd try and take 3 or 4 of us in a 14-foot rowboat. And basically there was no casting because it would just be a nightmare of lures flying around. So actually we did a lot of just trolling and pretty much just 2 rods. So no matter how many people were in the boat, 2 rods went out. You took turns holding it. When a fish bite, you get a chance to reel it in. If you didn't catch it, it was still the next person's turn. If you did catch it, good for you.
So it was up to you to catch the fish.
Troller, right away.
So there was no you get them till you catch one. You had your chance. That was it.
Yeah, you had your turn, and then it rotated through the rest of them. And it wasn't like we'd catch a ton of fish. If we caught 5 to 10 fish in a day, that would be a really good day. So
you had your own opportunity. You better make that happen.
It was a little bit of a competition and a little bit of who could get the biggest one, but it really was totally random who caught the fish and who didn't.
So did you guys spend all day on the water then, or just a couple hours, or how long was he able to put up with you guys out there?
I doubt if it was all day. Dad, first of all, probably wouldn't row all day, so I would imagine it was a little 3-4 hour stints that we'd get out, and if the weather got bad at all, we were in. So we were pretty much fair weather, short day fishermen.
So what kind of lures were you using back then? What was your world that you guys were putting on?
Daredevils were huge. Red and white, black and white daredevils, pretty simple. My big move up in the world was when I got a MEP spinner with a plastic minnow all in one. Was like the northern pike killer, bass killer. I mean, that was just the best lure in the world. I would save up to try and buy 1 or 2 of those because right away the northerns would rip up that little minnow, and you couldn't just buy the minnow; you had to buy the whole deal. So I had a lot of just spinners with no bodies on them left, which never seemed to catch fish. I needed that little minnow on there. So I guess I was into artificials pretty early in my life, actually.
Right. Heck yeah.
I had a problem converting over to that as I grew older, I guess.
So then if you transitioned to when you kind of were by yourself, say in like 13, 14, 15, when did you kind of transition where you kind of were going out more by yourself on shore with your friends? Did that ever happen?
No.
How was that next step for you?
I was kind of a loner because none of my friends wanted to fish as long in the day as I did. Once I was allowed to use the rowboat, that was, crack of, right at sunrise, I'd be out. maybe come rowing in for a little bit of lunch, but back out for the afternoon bite. And I would just fish as much as they would let me go out. I mean, and many days that was the whole day. Some days they had some chores for me or whatever, but no, I would fish morning till night. I mean, my grandpa even tells the story of, he used to take, if there was a couple of grandkids, we'd go crappie or bluegill fishing. The rule was when the 5-gallon bucket filled up, we're done fishing. The second rule was nobody goes fishing again until the fish are cleaned. So I got to be a really good fish cleaner because all my brothers and sisters would scatter and go and do other things. I wanted to go back out fishing, so I'd sit there and clean that whole bucket of fish for everybody so I could go back out and catch some more. So, I was definitely kind of the addict in the family when it came to fishing. All of my siblings don't fish as much as I do. My mom, my dad, nobody else fishes as much as I do. I just always had a passion for it, I guess.
Wow. So you learned to row pretty well then, huh?
Yeah. It was a big day when I think my dad got us a little 5-horse or something gas engine. So now I could go well to the other side of the lake. I could get down. We lived on a lake called Long Lake up north. I could get to the far side of the lake and learn new stuff. So yeah, that was a big deal to get actually a boat with a motor on it. That only lasted for a while though, because once I went to college when I was 18, I kind of, believe it or not, kind of quit fishing for about 3 years there, just to do college and all the stuff associated with that. So
when you were fishing with the rowboat and that first by yourself, those first years or so, did you always imagine the other side of the lake had all the big fish, and as soon as you got there, you were going to just hammer them and thing would just make sense, and every cast would be a fish? Did your brain work like that when you're fishing the other side of the lake for all those years?
Fishing is always better on the other side of the lake. Always better on the other side. It turns out right in front of my dad's cabin, there was this beautiful trough in there that had, slightly lower weeds in it. And over the years, I finally figured out, I just got to I got to go out 50 feet here and just make a little drift down the trough, and I'll catch more of the big northern pike and bass than I would going across the lake. But yeah, as a young person, it felt like it, the further away you could get, the better it was, even though right up the shore, there's somebody else's cabin sitting right there, and they were probably driving over by ours to go fishing over by ours.
I always joke, it's amazing how many fish we drive over.
Oh, yeah. And with the new electronics, you kind of know how many you do. It's thousands, millions of fish I've driven over in my career.
So you guys didn't have, I'm guessing, had no electronics on that boat, probably no lights?
No electronics for sure. We had a light. I mean, it was one of those clip-on lights on the bottom, and a clip-on light in the back. But we didn't really fish at night that much. That was kind of the curfew for me. They wanted me off the water by dark. So
gotcha. That makes sense.
I was in by then. But yeah, definitely no electronics. I mean, it was basically look down and see where the best weeds are. You had no idea if there was humps or anything else.
So what kind of equipment were you using at the time? Poles, reels? What kind of stuff were you a young guy using back then?
I think whatever Dad happened to have around the cabin is what I kind of used. I remember I had a blue tip-up tackle box made out of tin, so I had a really fancy one because it was a metal one. But otherwise, I know we used to stop up in Park Falls. St. Croix had the store, discount store, and they had a discount bin with rods. That's where my dad bought rods, is in the discount bin at the outlet store up at St. Croix Rods. I don't even think they had St. Croix on them. It was just blanks that just a little bit was wrong, and so you take and get them that way. Otherwise, rummage sale rods. I can't remember him like going to a Bass Pro or something like that and actually buying a brand new rod. I don't remember that at all.
Did you guys ever go shopping for bait? Was there a bait store up there that went to a ton that was kind of sits your memory and all? Or
well, what was interesting is me and my brother used to pick night crawlers, and then that was our fund to buy lures with. So we'd bring them, we'd take them. We were living in Wausau. We'd pick our night crawlers down there. We'd bring them all the way up north by Ashland, Iron River up there. Go in a bait store. The guy would buy all of our night crawlers on a credit for tackle. So that's when we buy our line and our spinners with the little minnow on it and daredevils and all that stuff. So, and of course, a good supply of bobbers and hooks and stuff because we panfished a lot. So that was kind of my, that's how I actually earned getting to buy lures. My dad would once in a while buy something for us, some kind of, maybe a Rapala or something, but not that much, not very much.
So was it an equal share then? Did your brother pick as many as you did, and did the lures, the credit store even up there too?
I actually think he kept most of his money. I don't even think I think our dad gave him the money and let me buy all the lures. I can't remember. He didn't have that many lures. I was the lure guy, and everybody knew that, so they just used my stuff. They didn't have to go out and get stuff. So anyway,
right. So coming out of that, did you fish a lot in high school then? Was it you kind of did sports, or was that kind of the same thing?
I mean, I did some. But I started to work when I was 16. I just felt like money was that important, and I actually started working in a Chinese restaurant of all places
in Wausau.
Yeah, Billy Moy's down at the train depot down there. So started out as a dishwasher, moved up to busboy, and then finally I was the American cook. So I cook all the French fries and hamburgers and fried rice and things like that. So I did that, and I really did like money, I guess, back then, so much that I work. I get $1.80 an hour. Yeah, I'll work as much as I can. So all my other activities kind of went away because I wanted to save up and buy a car and other things. And then college came pretty quick. So I fished, whenever we got up north on a vacation or whatever, I'd fish pretty much every day I could. But it wasn't like I would, take off after work and go down on the Wisconsin River and stuff. Fishing. So it kind of, like I said, probably from about 16 to maybe when I was about, 19 or 20, I kind of waned a little. I had other interests and things like that. A lot of friends, trying to get girlfriends and things like that. So, but then once I got done with college, it was straight back to fishing.
So were you looking forward to it? Did it start to kind of creep back in you during college then, of like, hey,
I think it was always in me. It was just kind of got a little bit lower priority, and just timing and things like that. Just trying to experience. You experience a lot of things in college, and you actually use a lot of time experience, whatever it is. So, just getting away, because now it wasn't me hopping in the car with dad or grandpa and going fishing. I would have to actually get in my car, pay for the gas money, and drive up to wherever they were. And it just did get away from me a little. But I always, through the whole time, even when I was in college, high school and college, I went in as get in a math major, and I switched to a math and computer science major. All that time, I was still thinking in the back of my head, I always wanted to get back into fishing. I wanted to be either a guide or maybe own a resort. That was kind of my ultimate thing. I want to own a resort so that I'm right on the water. I could go fishing every day. That was and it had nothing to do with what I was going to college for. I really should have been in marketing or some kind of business kind of degree or things like that. But that was kind of always in the back of my head. How could I get back to owning a resort, going guiding, just being there, part of fishing every day of my life. So
was there any particular memories that kept bringing you back during those years when you were away, or just the being out there? Or?
No, I just there's something about getting a bite, setting a hook, reeling it in that just always, I probably lost track of friends who just didn't do it avidly enough for me, because that's what I wanted to do. They wanted to do the other things that, normal people do, I guess. I wanted to go fishing. So I do have a lot of friends who like to go fishing now, or we talk about fishing, maybe not quite as much as I do, but, it just, you end up with people that like to do the same thing with you as life goes on. And that's what happened for me. I just started meeting more and more people and who like to fish. Even though I went to work at IBM right out of college down in Rochester, Minnesota, I met several guys right away who like to fish. So that's who I hung out with. Nothing to do with work, nothing to do with who I did things with at work. It was all about, hey, this weekend, where are we going to go fishing?
So that's when you first got the, like, after work, I'm going to spend now you're making money. Now you can get out and start enjoying it.
Yeah, making money. Yeah. I was really making a lot of money. Our first apartment was a very small apartment. We had a dog, so we couldn't just go in any apartment. It was only ones that allowed dogs.
Yep.
1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, small, had carpet in the bathroom that grew mushrooms. our main furniture in the living room was a freezer where I could freeze fish, a little chest freezer. My wife put some candles on top to kind of make it look living room.
Dress it up.
Yeah. But yeah, we lived there for a year, and then thankfully we were able to get a house. I mean, I was a computer scientist and just had some, student loans and stuff I had to get rid of. And then we were able to get into a decent house. Had a garage, so it's time for a boat.
Right. So what was your first boat?
My first boat was actually my wife's uncle's boat. He was selling I think it was a 14-foot Miracraft with a 18-horse Sears Seahorse on the back of it.
Okay.
So, and they were both really old, and it cost me about $900. I took all of my IBM stock options I'd built up for a year, and I turned them all in, and I bought this $900 boat, saying to my wife, this will be the last boat I ever need.
Oh, boy.
So that was my first boat. It was a nightmare. It was hard to start. We loved to go up on the Mississippi River when I was at that time in my life. And so it was cold out. We'd go September to March. The thing wouldn't start. You'd build up a huge sweat before you even got going. Then you'd be shivering all day because you got all this dampness underneath. So, yeah, it wasn't the best boat in the world, but it took me a lot of places fishing, and I caught a lot of fish in it.
I would say with that IBM stock, it's probably the most expensive boat of all time.
I should have kept it instead of turning it in. I wish I had all that IBM stock, but yeah, no, I had $900. I probably think I had $980 worth, and I spent $900 on that, and I bought a used green box. If you remember the Lowrance green boxes,
yep.
Put in a nice wooden shelf in between my two bench seats, so I could put that green box on there, and I was set. So
did you that green box? Did you know what that was at first, or was it just something that other people were getting? Did you understand what that meant?
No, by then I had seen them. Gary, my wife is Gary's sister, Parsons' sister. So they were quite a bit ahead of me. I now was starting to fish with them a little bit. They had depth finders. They had, a little nicer boats. They had planer boards. They had all of this stuff. And I was just learning. I mean, I was like a sieve. I was like, holy crap, you can see the bottom, see how deep it is? Well, yeah, but you can also see fish on it. And I was like, oh, I got to have one of them. So, I mean, I knew what I wanted. And as I could afford it, I started buying it all. So, but yeah, I agree. I knew what a green box was, and I knew I had to have one. And I was super thrilled when I did get one.
Wow. So what else did you do did you do any like customization to the boat to kind of make it yours?
Just that shelf, put a little tiller trolling motor on it. I think I bought one of them. Otherwise, no, that's all I could afford. So I went with what I had. And the smartest thing I did in that period of my time was I joined a fishing club out of Rochester, and they allowed you to join as a non-boater. Even though I had this boat, I knew nothing, so little about the Mississippi. All I wanted to do was hop in the boat with other people who might know something. And so that's what I did. Me and this other guy, we joined as non-boaters. They were happy because almost everybody in the club had boats, and they held 4, 5, 6 tournaments a year, and you draw different partners, and it was just a great learning experience. I learned how to vertical jig. I learned how to read the currents up on the Mississippi. I really learned a lot. Probably 50% of what I know about rivers, even right now, was learned in those 3 years we were in that club. Learning from the other guys in the club. So
was there a particular guy that was a hammer in that you wanted to fish with? You're like, oh, I want to fish with Donnie so and so because there was always
one guy who always did good. It was Gary Polakowski. He only had like 2 or 3 fingers on his jigging hand. I don't quite know how he even held onto his rod, but he's the one who I hopped in his boat and he started vertical jigging. Even in the current, literally dropping your line straight down and just going right with the current, controlling the boat. And we caught so many fish. It was like, I've got to learn how to do that. And that's all I just fixated on the rest of after I learned that's all I fixated on. Every time we went to the Mississippi, we just got better and better at vertical jigging. We got to the point where we could vertical jig with 2 rods. We had Snell systems that we came up with. To get light biting fish. I mean, it was just all about vertical jigging. We never even pitched jigs, which ends up, if you do pitch jigs now, or even back then, that's when you get really big fish.
Yep.
But we'd just go up there. We'd want to get 50, 100 fish a day, vertical jigging, just as many as we could. Didn't matter the weather, didn't matter how cold it was. We were vertical jigging and just loving it. I mean, that was a great, probably 3 or 4 years. Me and Jeff Stevenson, my eventual first MWC partner, we would go up there every weekend, September to March, and just vertical jig our butts off.
So that was your first technique that you truly mastered, you feel?
Walleye technique. Yeah. We didn't even fish wing dams. We didn't fish, like I said, we didn't pitch shallow. We just went up and we vertical jigged, and we got better and better and better at it, to the point where finally the editor of In Fisherman, Doug Stange, heard about me and came down and kind of wanted to challenge me because he felt like he was a pretty good vertical jigger. So went better for me than him.
So in that club time, obviously in the back of your brain of you're obviously doing tournaments, the thought of going on your own and doing your own, when did that kind of start trickling in?
That was Gary Parsons. He went and he fished a couple tournaments. The first real national team tournaments were the Mannion Circuit, and him and his brother went and fished a couple of those events. And basically he said, I just know how competitive you are, Keith. I know how you like fishing. You need to get in the tournament. So the next year, me and this Jeff Stevenson, the engineer from IBM, we joined 1 or 2 Winnebago tournaments because that's where Gary was out of. I had done a lot of fishing over there with their family. And we got, I think even Otter Street might have been one of them. And we were just thrilled. It was Otter Street because I remember we came in 67th. And we were so excited that we had beat like 140 other teams. It didn't matter that we placed in the money. It didn't matter that we didn't win. And none of that mattered. We had a good showing. We beat more than we lost to. And so that was just a great feeling. And that's what really just stoked the fire and just really wanted me to fish competitively. And I learned so much doing the tournament. I mean, that's the one thing about tournaments is not, I mean, it's great to win. It's great to win money, but just how much knowledge you can get out of a tournament just by being in it, because you pay it to the other anglers. You get to talk to them after the weigh-in. They tell you things. I mean, you just learn so much that I knew competitive fishing was for me. So
it is a strange community. You know, you wouldn't see Bill Belichick and whoever after a game talking about what the strategy and what they did. You know, it's pretty interesting that the fishermen, although very secretive, do open up to each other.
I think you get groups. I think you get to where they know if you come up with something, you'll tell them. You get some trust among you. You get a little community. I do think that walleye fishermen are much more likely to have a bigger community than, say, a lot of the other sports. The muskie fishermen, the bass fishermen, they're much more tight. There's a much smaller circle of people that they spread around knowledge to. Now, I mean, now with social media, obviously, a lot of us, that's our job is to teach people how to fish. So you spread a lot of knowledge that way. But back then, I mean, you just didn't go on Facebook and post, hey, I won this with a flicker shad and I was trolling this to even. You just didn't do that. It was whatever you could get. And it kind of quit there when everybody headed home after the weigh-in. There wasn't a lot of dissemination of what actually happened at that event, because the next time that could come back out would be if a magazine article was written about it, and it might be 6 months, a year later before that even came out. So there wasn't this immediate feedback that we get now. And back then, the only immediate feedback is what your peers, the people in your group, or people you trusted would actually tell you about what happened in that tournament. Yeah,
because I remember, as a kid growing up, to see results of fishing tournaments, it'd be on the back, it'd be the last page or two of In Fisherman or whatever. It'd have the PMT results or PMW results, all that stuff on the back pages. But that would be, like you said, that'd be half a year later that stuff would come out. Those were weekly magazines,
right? And it's just weights,
So there's nothing to it.
And say, 1 and 3 caught it on this. And what's interesting is I still have all of them. I would take notes. I'd run home and, all right, first place was doing this. This is what I heard. Third place was doing this. This is what I heard. Water temperature was this. We were there this time. And I kept all those notes, still have them, and I still refer back to them. I mean, if we go to a certain place at a certain time of year, conditions are similar, I just always figure the fish might be doing the same thing. So.
Right. I mean, so you have a treasure trove of tournament information just at your fingertips.
I do.
For the full version of this podcast, check out Fix TV. And remember, follow me on the talk at Smile and Fish and everywhere else at Matt Snell.